As most of you know at this point, I'm obsessed with cooking. I'm a true pro home cook in my blood. This isn't some type of gimmick. I spend most of my time in the kitchen preparing food for my family, recipe testing for videos, and I think it all worked out. It was a little more in balance before the pandemic and also before I had a new addition to the family.
Marley, what are you doing in the fridge? Gotcha.
But now that I don't have as much relief from restaurants, like I haven't been out to a restaurant in months, well, it's a lot. So I'm currently working on getting my wife a little more comfortable in the kitchen. She's definitely a beginner to cooking and she would love to just master, say, 5 dishes. So she had those dishes in her back pocket and she could just whip up a dinner or two throughout the week. And today we're starting with chicken Parmesan, because chicken parm was actually one of the first dishes that I made that broke me into the world of serious cooking. And there's so many incredible techniques and skills that will not only give you the ability to make an incredible chicken parm, but that will just carry over into your entire cooking practice. So as someone who's been cooking for over a decade, I've realized over time that it's very easy for me to take certain things in the kitchen for granted, things that I'm aware of, skills and techniques that a beginner might be brand new to. So what I did was I already had a cooking session with Sasha where we made chicken Parmesan, and I made sure to record every little question that she had because I felt like her beginner questions might be relatable to some of you out there. And her first question was pretty simple. For chicken Parmesan, you're gonna want some chicken breast, around 12 ounces for 2 portions, but my chicken happened to be frozen. If it's fresh, you don't have to worry about defrosting your chicken, but she wanted to know how to properly defrost chicken. And there's 2 main ways to do it. If you can remember a day or 2 ahead of time, just take your chicken out of the freezer and put it in the fridge and just let it slowly thaw out and defrost. Now, if your chicken's frozen and you're in a rush, what you're gonna wanna do is fill up a bowl with some room temperature water. As long as your frozen chicken is sealed in the packaging, you're just gonna slip that in the water, which will really speed up the defrosting process. You can dump that water out every now and then once it gets really cold and just replace that with more room temperature water if you wanna speed it up even more. And you can see very clearly that a chicken breast is an uneven piece of meat, which means that if you threw it in a pan, it will cook unevenly. Now we're gonna turn this chicken breast into something called a cutlet, which you can do to any piece of meat by just putting it in a plastic bag or in between some plastic wrap and pounding it out nice and thin and even. I'm using a rolling pin, but if you don't have a rolling pin, you can use the back of a heavy pan or just get creative. And you'll slowly just work your way around the meat. You can flip it over to make sure it's nice and even until you get that nice, thin, even chicken cutlet. So for this chicken parm, we've got a very classic 3-part breading. We've got flour in phase 1, which holds that egg on really nice. And then the egg will then glue on your Crispies, your breadcrumbs. And Sasha had a bunch of questions when it came to this phase. And her first question was, how do you know how much ingredient action to put in each of these phases? And I answered that pretty simply. It's just intuition, it's just feel. You don't want to be reliant on amounts when it comes to breading chicken. So this is a great place to start experimenting with feel. And just think about the amount of chicken you have. We've got 2 pretty big pieces of chicken right here that we got to coat, and just sprinkle on how much flour you think you need. As far as the egg goes, I think 1 egg, that's a lot of moisture right there. I prefer not to waste a whole extra egg if I don't need to, and this was a pretty large egg. And then breadcrumbs, same thing. Just sprinkle on, coat. You can always add more, but once that chicken hits these breadcrumbs, they're going in the trash if you have extra, so you don't want to go too heavy. Now in this case, we're not actually seasoning this chicken because we're seasoning each one of these layers. So I'm just gonna give each of these layers a coating of salt. I'll hit it with a little bit of pep and then just mix and scramble. And then we'll go in with the chicken into the flour. You can really load up the flour at first. The stuff that doesn't stick to the chicken will just fall right off, but you want to make sure, like this spot right here, for instance, not coated. Make sure it's completely coated. Dust that off into the egg mixture. And then same thing, once that's completely coated, you don't want excess egg. You'll just let that drip off, and we'll go into the breadcrumbs. And this is where you really want to load up about those breadcrumbs. Like, I can already tell that I'll probably need some more breadcrumbs, but that's totally fine. Always add more. So these are both finished. I'm gonna put them right on this wire rack. If you have one, you can just put it on a plate as well if you don't. And we wanna let these at least rest for 30 minutes if possible. The longer they rest, the more that breading can really adhere and create a beautiful crust on this chicken, which is actually perfect timing because we have to prepare the tomato sauce. But before we do that, it's super important when you're cooking, you gotta keep a clean counter space, a clean kitchen to some degree. And right now, this is a complete mess. So we'll let that chicken sit. I'm gonna clean up and we'll get to the tomato sauce in just a second. So these right here, our onion and garlic, are aromatics for our tomato sauce. Really the foundation of flavor. It all starts here. Without properly handling and preparing your aromatics, you're not getting very far with your tomato sauce. So we'll start with this onion. So I'm gonna take off the stem, keeping the root on for this because I'm chopping these onions up small. Peel that outer layer of onion skin. Depending on your onion, you might have to go one layer under. So in this case, we want our aromatics to be smaller because we're not blending our sauce and we're not cooking it down for an extended period of time. So what I'm gonna do is pop one cut right through the side. If it's a bigger onion, you can do 2 or 3 cuts. And now I left on that root because now I can just go down here, make vertical cuts from root to stem, and then go perpendicular on it, and you've got these little dices. Now, when you're down to a smaller piece of onion like this and things start getting a little shaky, find the flat surface, whatever has the biggest surface area, which is this, and then just continue to cut. Flat surface. And then you can turn it again, flat surface, again, flat surface, and we're not wasting any onion. All that's left is this root, which we of course don't need. One cut down the middle, root to stem, perpendicular, flat surface, flat surface again, and just finish it through. Now, how much garlic do you need? I mean, I'm not in charge of your garlic amounts over here. Completely up to you. I prefer a lot of garlic in my tomato sauce. Now, once your garlic is peeled, I'm just gonna slice through it. I'm gonna shift my knife technique just a bit and I'm gonna root the top end of my knife down and just rock and chop like that. Rock and chop, clean your knife, bunch it together, rock and chop, keeping this point rooted to the cutting board. Rock and chop. And just like that, we've got some minced garlic. I'm just grabbing a prep bowl to stay organized, but a really good question is, can I cook the onion and garlic together for this sauce? And it really depends on the heat you're cooking the sauce at. In this case, I'm cooking the sauce at a low enough temperature where these are fine to cook together. But if you are cooking your aromatics at a high temperature, you want to get the onion in there first to create a layer of protection so that garlic doesn't burn, because garlic will burn really quickly at higher temperatures. So these can all go in one bowl. Now for these tomatoes, it's really, really simple to chop these up. These tomatoes are soft and there's a lot of moisture in there. So once it releases, they're really gonna start to stew down. And I'm also gonna help them along the way by just mashing them up a little bit. So just, quarters. With these small ones, you can go right in half and you're good to go. There you go. Tomato sauce prepped and ready to go. So that brings me to another issue that a lot of beginner cooks have when they get in the kitchen, which is choosing the proper pan or pot to use for what they're cooking. In this case, we are frying these chicken cutlets up. So we want a pan that's a little bit thicker, that can retain a nice even cooking temperature so we can get a beautiful, even golden brown crust on this chicken. So I'm using this carbon steel pan, which brings me to the sponsor of today's video, which is Parmesan, the maker of this pan right here. And I'm a huge fan of Parmesan because they're on the same mission as Pro Home Cooks, which is really just to enable and inspire all of you to become better cooks in the kitchen. But they're doing it through kitchen tools. And because they're a direct-to-consumer brand, The products you're getting are just incredibly valued for the price that you're paying. Prices that 5-10 years ago when I started cooking were almost unheard of. It was very expensive to really build out a nice supply of kitchen gear, but Parmesan makes that possible. And this carbon steel pan has really become my go-to in the kitchen because of the versatility. It's naturally non-stick and it's just the perfect weight. So you can still get a really nice even heat because there's some heft to it, but it has the maneuverability of something like a stainless steel. So it's really become my go-to. If you could choose one pan in the kitchen to start your entire set, I would go with this carbon steel pan. So if you're interested in this pan right here or other Parmesan products, make sure you click the link below and use code word ProHomeCooks for 20% off your first order. So now that we have our pan chosen, I'm gonna put this on a nice medium heat and just let that preheat for a few minutes. So our pan is preheating, and to tell if it's good to go, just put your hand a few inches away. If you feel like it's giving off a good bit of heat, you should be good to fry your chicken or to fry anything. So I'm starting to get there now. I can feel a lot of heat coming off that pan, and a lot of people think you need to deep fry chicken parm. That is not the case at all. These are very thin cutlets right here, and a shallow fry will do the job. So I pretty much just coated my pan, the bottom of my pan, in oil, and I'm gonna lay this sucker in, and we'll just let that fry away. I'm liking the sound of these sizzles here. I can see the bubbles. We don't want anything too hot. We don't want this to burn on us. So Sasha was asking what temp to keep this pan at, which brings up maybe the number one thing that home cooks need to master, like a hurdle you have to get over, which is understanding flame control or just temperature control. In this case, I don't have a flame. And what I want to tell you right now is you have permission to adjust your temperature throughout the entire cooking process. We've got a heavy pan here, so that will do a good job of keeping a decent heat. But right now, for instance, it's just feeling like it's cooking a little bit too slowly, which is all right. I might not get it perfect the first time. There's a lot of variables involved. So I'm just going to take this dial right here and go from a 5 to a 6. And that doesn't mean I can't take it down a few levels in another minute. You might be adjusting throughout this entire process, and that is all right. So it's been about 3 minutes on that side, and that is beautiful. And you can see just a little darker on this side. I actually think my pan wasn't really centered on the burner. That's all right, you live and you learn. But overall, I think that temperature at a medium heat is gonna be perfect for getting that nice crispy crust and cooking that chicken completely through. So I'll just monitor this side. Like I could go a little bit longer on that. So I'll put it in for just another 30 seconds to a minute. So golden brown on both sides. That's coming off. Now I've got a little bit of oil left in that pan. I'm just gonna hit it with a little more and in with my second cutlet. Flip this, all right, that's finished. So I wanted to make this process realistic, so Sasha would actually have a dish she wanted to make. And rather than deep frying the chicken parm in a separate pan than making the tomato sauce, we're gonna make the tomato sauce right in this pan. We have all these breadcrumbs in there, all that residual oil. That's totally fine because the breadcrumbs are actually gonna work in our favor and they're gonna help thicken up our tomato sauce. Now I do think that this is a little bit high of a temperature right now. I don't want that garlic burning, remember, and I think it's a little dry. So I'm just gonna hit those aromatics with a little bit of oil. I'll go in with a little bit of salt, and we'll just cook those down until they're nice and soft and sweet. Now, when it comes to cooking, you always want to be thinking about time management. As much as I wish I had unlimited time in the kitchen, I certainly do not. So I've got the aromatics slow cooking. I'm actually just going to turn them down just a bit to make sure they don't burn. And Sasha wanted a dish that was healthy-ish. So obviously we fried those chicken cutlets, but rather than plating it over a bed of pasta, just adding some more carbs, I'm going to chop up some broccoli. You can use any veggie. The technique I'm going to show you can be used for any type of green, any type of veggie. So I'm just gonna cut these florets up into bite-sized pieces. You can also use some of the broccoli stalk. Do not sleep on the broccoli stalk. Just go around with your knife, slice that up, and boom, just like that. A little bit of multitasking to speed up this entire dinner process. Now that the broccoli's cut, I can save that in a bowl for just a little later, and I can resume action on those aromatics, which should be ready for these tomatoes. So how do I know if these aromatics are ready to go? Well, they certainly look nice and soft. You can see they've softened, but do not be scared to taste them, as long as they're not too hot. Now, if you're tasting a sharp bite from the onion or garlic, you need to soften them up a little bit. You haven't brought out those sugars just yet. But in this case, I taste the sweetness. I taste that depth of flavor from that caramelizing process, which means we have built the foundation of this tomato sauce, and I can go in with these fresh tomatskis. Now that we're protected by the liquid of the tomatoes, we know we're not gonna burn, so I can turn the temperature up. And I'm just gonna let these cook at a higher temperature for about a minute till they start to stew. You can see the tomatoes have started to release some juice. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of white wine. We were drinking white wine when we made this dish the first time, but the wine is totally optional. And then what I like to do is just go in with a potato masher, almost juicing those tomatoes, so you really give them a head start breaking down. Smelling incredible. I'm just gonna turn that down to a medium-low heat and let it reduce until we have a nice tomato sauce. The sauce has been cooking for about 8 minutes, and you can see it's thickened up a lot, but it's still a little juicy. See that juice running off? Probably needs another 2 to 3 minutes to really get to that perfect level, but I am gonna taste it. Definitely needs a little bit of salt, a little bit of fresh cracked pepper. So that, for me, is perfect. We don't want it too saucy because we don't have any pasta to absorb this. This is just going right on top of the chicken. Fresh tomato sauce, pretty damn simple. Finish up this chicken. Tin foil, tomato sauce. I've got a fresh ball of mozzarella, which I just froze for a few minutes to make this a little easier to grate. Really load up that cheese. I'm gonna be broiling this. I just wanna get that cheese nice and gooey and melty, but that chicken right there is super thin. So if I threw this in the oven on a convection heat, say 450 degrees, I would melt the cheese, but then I would overcook those thin chicken cutlets. Now the broil is just hitting it with direct heat from the top, melting that cheese, which is happening as we speak in front of our eyes, but not overcooking those chicken cutlets. And whenever you broil, you just gotta watch your food like a hawk to make sure nothing burns. Now, while those are broiling, I'm just gonna take this broccoli, throw it right into the sauce, and I'll toss a lid on that, and I'll let that steam and cook in that tomato sauce. And in a matter of 4 or 5 minutes, you've got a great little veggie side to go with this chicken parm. All right, I've got a special surprise in here. Take a look at this. I think those are just about perfect. So check this out. Just like that. The broccoli has steamed in there, not overcooked, still has some integrity, and it's just coated in that beautiful tomato sauce. There we go. You ready for chicken parm? That is looking good.